Namaste, everyone. It is Sahara Rose, and welcome to episode 4 of the Highest Self podcast. I am your host. And today's topic I'm really excited to talk about. I'm just free-flowing here and seeing what comes through me as I'm tapped into my divine self. And the episode today is all about past lives. So past lives, what are they? How do we know what they are? People talk about them. It's really confusing. Let's discuss and just jam on this. So not everyone believes in past lives, and not everyone has to. Not everyone believes in global warming either. You know, there are things that you can believe in and things that you don't have to. My entire life, I've always believed in past lives. It's never made sense to me that our soul was just like put here for this one lifetime and then leaves and like that's it. I believe that the soul lives on, and I believe that it takes on different reincarnations. I believe that some of these reincarnations are human, some can be animals, some can be plants. I don't think our souls are like always in the game. I don't know if it's like you just die and you instantly come back, but I think in between lives, there's a little bit of time that your soul kind of needs to like think about, okay, what were the lessons that I've learned in this lifetime, and like what are the things that I still need to work on? So in Hinduism, Buddhism, and a lot of spiritual beliefs, this notion of past lives and Dharma is extremely crucial. So our Dharma is essentially our purpose here. So when we were born, we were each given a purpose, and this purpose is tied in with the gifts that we were given. So let's say you were born with a strong musical talent. Just musical instruments have always come really easily to you. Like my boyfriend's this way. He can just pick up any instrument and begin playing it, and he never took a music class in his life, and he plays 5 instruments. So he's someone that obviously in his Dharma, it's to play music, and he works in the music industry now, and he's in the other room making music as we speak. So that is such a part of his life's path. Now, when I look at him and his past lives, I think, well, there was definitely a musician there, but then you can go deeper into, well, what kind of musician was it? Where did this musician live? Where was it? All of these things. And the best way I find to go about it is to follow the familiarity. So our bodies are basically these compasses that we have, and they're always like signaling us where to go and what to do and what feels right. That's why, you know, when you have like a weird feeling in your stomach, you know something's up, or when you feel excitement, you like feel it and your heart feels expanded. And our bodies are these like instruments, and they're always like picking up on frequencies, and the frequencies are telling us like this feels right, this feels wrong. So for me, I really followed the frequencies of my body, and I see how something feels in me physically, and that allows me to see, okay, how does this resonate with my soul? Because a lot of times the mind puts on stories, and the mind says, well, that would have been really cool if I was marrying Antoinette. You know, I like cake, so maybe I was marrying Antoinette. But you're not feeling your body. You're just creating a story for yourself. So it's very different feeling something physically of this nostalgia and like knowingness. Like even when I talk about it, I like get these like jumps in my stomach, and it's like this, whoa, like, oh my God, that was exactly what happened. So for me, I always knew I was Indian in my past life. I remember when we were in 5th grade, you were supposed to dress up as your hero, and people were like, my mom, like Marilyn Monroe. And I came in like a full on turban. I'm like, I'm Gandhi. Hello, kids. And they're all like, what the hell? And I remember they were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I want to be a nun and move to Calcutta, India. And I was like obsessed with Mother Teresa. And as I mentioned, I used to have an Indian accent. I look very Indian. I always ate with my hands. I would listen to Bollywood music and cry. And just, it like literally was speaking to my soul on another level. And I would watch these Bollywood movies, and just everything about them felt so at home to me. Like I felt like the way that they were dressing and the storylines and everything. I like truly was an Indian person watching their own films, even though I had grown up in Boston, which is like the polar opposite. So for me, India was always like, I've definitely spent some time there. So when I visited India, I was in Jaipur, which is this beautiful city that I highly recommend visiting. It's called the Pink City. It's in Rajasthan. And I was staying at this place called the Rambagh Palace, which is the last place that the Maharajas and Maharanis, which are the royalty, the princes and princesses of India, used to live there. So up until even British rule, they still lived there. And it was the last palace that was still operating with royalty. So it's a really amazing place. And they recently turned it into a hotel. So I was staying there, and as soon as I got there, I got this weird feeling of I've been here before. And I'm going around the rooms, and this hotel is literally in a house essentially. And I'm going around and I'm well, there's a bathroom there and the kitchen's there, and I know my way around the whole house. And I was the peacocks are going to come out at this time, and it was this weird, I've been here. And that night in my dream, I saw myself there, and I saw myself living my life there as the Maharani, a princess in that palace. And I remember feeling trapped, and I remember wanting to leave and wanting to see what is outside and wanting to see the outside world, but not being allowed to. And I remember sitting in my room, looking out at the peacock and wishing I could just be free like them and fly away. And in this reincarnation of my life, I've always felt like that. I've always felt, I wish I could just escape. I wish I could just be a backpacker and travel and no one knows me and live in these huts. And I did that for years. And since I was 15, I was I want to be a human shield and stand in front of bulldozers that are trying to break down settlements and be in the Congo and stop the, child traffickers. And I've always wanted to put myself in this risk of danger, really. Life to me was meant to be sacrificing your life. And I've always told my parents, I'm probably going to die in a freak accident. So don't freak out if that happens. And they're what? But I've always felt that way. And it finally made sense to me at this time that my past life, I was never allowed to. And my soul wanted to so badly to see the face of poverty and see what was outside of the palace walls. And finally, when I got the chance to, my soul was oh, I'm going all out. And I went to Zimbabwe, and I was in Nicaragua, and I was in Peru. And I was and when I was in these places, in high school, I would hitchhike and go here and take random buses and meet people and be oh, I'll come with you to this village. And I was just not afraid of anything. So, and I was always extremely protected too. It's amazing that nothing happened to me. So I always had my spirit guides, which are my past life selves, my higher selves, my teachers who are above me watching after me. They always had my back, and I've always known this. And that also gave me this kind of feeling of safety, because I knew anywhere I went, my spirit guides were protecting me. So when I went to Jaipur, stayed in this house, had this crazy past life regression, I knew that this was part of my karma, basically, that I was healing at this point, coming back full circle, hitting this checkpoint of being, okay, you came back here and you are the person that you needed to be at this time. So now you can move forward. So in spiritual belief, it's that our souls kind of have these strings that are connected to different people and places and situations. And our soul kind of needs to hit all of these points in order to keep progressing. So that's where soulmates comes from. It's you might meet someone, and for a period of time you guys really get along and you love each other, and then you've learned the lessons that you needed to learn from one another, and then your souls can part ways and move on. So that's why not everything is meant to last forever. There might be someone that you meet for 5 minutes and you have that one conversation that your soul needed to keep going on its path. I know for me that happens all the time. I meet someone, just that one day we have this crazy conversation. We never see each other again, but I'm I figure out later on, that's exactly why that conversation was brought to me. So our souls are constantly directing us and guiding us. And it takes this knowingness to know, okay, well, which is the right way to go. So a lot of my past lives started to come to me after that. I became much more attuned to noticing the small details, that little things I began to pick up with. And I had all of these pieces of the puzzle on my hand already, but now I was okay, well, this is kind of how you can put it together. So for me, as a child, my first language was Spanish. When I was a kid, My mom spoke to me in Spanish, and my babysitter was from Guatemala, and she always spoke to me in Spanish. And before I knew Farsi, which is my parents' language, the Persian language, before I knew English, I didn't know English till I was like in kindergarten. I just taught myself, but I spoke Spanish. Y también si yo hablo español, toda la gente piensa que yo soy Latina. Like I speak Spanish like a Hispanic person. And then I realized my whole life I've just really been enamored by like Latin culture and the music and the people and like everything that was like Latin American as well. It always really felt at home to me. And then I never took Spanish classes again. I took French growing up. But then when I was in like my last 2 years of high school, I was like, I don't really want to take French anymore. I'll take Spanish. And like suddenly it all came back to me. I was able to speak it perfectly. And just the whole culture was so secondhand to me. So I learned that I had at least one past life that I was Hispanic. But upon meditation, I saw myself as this old lady with gray hair. I'm looking at her face right now, and she's missing her front teeth. And she's short, she has dark skin, she's shriveled up, she's, I think, Central American. She's like tiny. And she's like a medicine woman, and she's sitting in front of a fire. People are coming to her, and she's like creating these like medicines over the fire and giving them to people and like healing them with that. And she's wearing a pink shirt. Like I can just see this so clearly in my mind. And it just came to me, and I was like, oh my God, that was me. And I've always just been super into making potions and trinkets. And when I was like a kid in 4th grade, like my teacher called my parents because they're like, your daughter says she's a witch. And I was like, no, guys, I'm a witch. And they're like, no, you're not. And I would practice spells, go to like Salem with the witches town in Massachusetts and with my friends. And we were like a witch trio group, and we would perform all these spells, go into the forest, do all these like witchcraft things. Like it was so crazy. But that was the part of me that knew like I was like this like medicine woman witch before. And witch doesn't mean evil at all. Like many witches is turned into an evil connotation when the patriarchal rule came and said, oh my God, these women are super powerful. And they decided to put a negative connotation on it and say, oh, that witchcraft is evil, witchcraft is this, burn them at the stake. But actually, it was just the power of women when they come together and heal each other. We are all witches. That made sense to me. Seeing myself as the medicine woman, I've always been really drawn to shamanism. Shamanism is Latin American healing, essentially. So when I went to Bali, I found myself meeting this amazing shaman named Malaika, and then I did her teacher training, the 5 Elements Shamanic Teacher Training, which I really recommend, and learning about how to heal with the elements and like connecting to earth and like shaking your body and, playing music and all of these traditional shamanic instruments. And again, it was this language and this feeling of coming home. And afterwards, when I came back to the United States after spending so much time in Bali and in India, it was a huge like shock for me. So I would go into like my backyard and I would shake and do all of these like shamanic rituals. And my mom's like, okay, she's seriously lost the plot. But they saved me and they helped me and they kept me grounded. And then afterwards, some other past lives. I was a belly dancer before who was not allowed to dance. So again, this desire to move and dance and be free. Freedom is a really big thing in my life. I've had many past lives that I was not free. And a lot of past lives that I was in royalty and wanting to be amongst the people, and a lot as high priestesses. So I'll talk more about this in the archetype episodes, but there are archetypes, which are basically, Vata, Pitta, and Dosha are archetypes, just like a king or a high priestess or a jester. These are all archetypes. So the archetype of high priestess, which is basically someone that spreads the message, extremely resonates with me hard because I'm always trying to spread the higher message. I'm always trying to inspire people to be the best versions of them. For me, my highest self is truly to help other people. Learning about that and studying everything there is to know about spirituality and reincarnation and things like that, and then just tuning in, and then it would come to me. So my first advice to figure out what your past lives are is to write down the places that you feel drawn. Maybe it's somewhere that you've been. Maybe it's somewhere you haven't been. For example, a friend of mine who's Indian, she feels really drawn to like ancient Rome. When she went to Rome, she had that same experience that I had in Jaipur, India, where she felt like she was coming back home, and it was like this place that she had lived before, and she doesn't even look Indian. She actually looks extremely Roman. So it's this like, you're for sure Roman. And it just comes to her, and just the language, she's really good at French. She's really just good at European languages. So she's definitely had many past lives as a European. For other people, like my father, he is extremely Japanese. Like, he looks Japanese. I can like show a picture for you guys, and maybe I'll post it on my story or something. But he looks 100% Japanese. He acts 100% Japanese. He loves anything related to Japan. He loves the food. He loves the math system. He always sent me to Japanese math school growing up, Kumon. He loves just the way that their things are shaped. Like, all the architecture that he creates is based off of Japanese elements. He is a Japanese person. When my mom first met my dad is Persian. He's Iranian as well. And my mom met him, and he started talking to her in Farsi, and she was like, wow, this Japanese guy speaks Persian really well. And she figured out later that he's actually Persian. She was like, what? Like, she literally couldn't believe it. So your past lives come through. So maybe you look like you're from somewhere else. You're the odd one in your family. You like look like you're from a totally different place than everyone else around you. That can be your past life showing up. Or if there's like a place that you really resonate with, like I know someone in my Mind Body Balancers group, I brought this up, and she was saying how anything Arabic she resonates with. And she was like walking, and she found this like Quran or something on the floor, and like she began reading it, and it like brought back so many memories. And she doesn't speak Arabic, but she's just so drawn, and she's, I think, moving to Morocco or something. So it happens all the time. It sounds like weird when you first hear of it, but then when you really start to dabble in it, you're like, oh, well, maybe I could be from there, or like maybe I've lived in this era. So if there's a time, like maybe you've seen a movie before that you're like super just drawn to that time period, and you just wish you could be there. And it's more than this mental thing, but more of this like physical, like feeling warm, feeling at home, feeling like you've come back to something. That's the feeling that you should be looking after. It might start of you just thinking about it mentally of like, okay, well, where do I feel this? Where do I feel that? And you can write it down, but it has to become a knowingness. You're not going to think of your past life in a Venn diagram of, well, it could be X, Y, Z, but I'm going to guess Z. It's going to come with you when you're ready to know. And you already know, but there are layers that you have placed before you that are preventing you from accessing that higher truth. So maybe first you're going to have to shed the belief that past lives don't exist. Maybe that's what's holding you back from knowing. And once you've shed those beliefs, then you can start to see, okay, well, maybe I'm more than just my physical body. Maybe I have this soul. Maybe I've been here before. Like, what really resonates with me? Like, I know for me and a lot of people, like just the Buddha, like we see the Buddha, like I'm staring at my Buddha right now, and he brings so much calmness to us. And that could be like, there's so many Buddhist people in the planet, and could have been that in a past life you were Buddhist or drawn to Buddhism or something like that. It takes true self-knowingness to see, how do I feel most at home? Where do I feel like I belong? And once you've tapped into there, envision yourself there. What would that life have looked like? Was I male? Was I female? Not all of us were always the same gender. I mean, you've probably been another gender at some point. So maybe a lot of women have masculine energy. Maybe in a recent past life, you were a man, and that's why you get along with men all the time. You have this like tomboy side of you. And a lot of us feel that way. So if, I have another friend, she's always saying it's like so hard for me to remember to be a girl, like, because she's lived all of her lives before as male. So she's, just being dominant and aggressive. Like these are like things that come naturally to her. So she's trying to work really hard on being a female in this life. This can all be related to the lives that you've had in your past. I'm super curious to know about what your past lives experiences have been. How did you find them? Was it through meditation? Was it just a download that you received perceived in a state of flow. You can also keep a journal, and every time you kind of have this like tidbit of an idea or something, maybe in a dream or maybe it just comes to you, you can write that down and just like keep on working at it. And then like over time, you'll naturally begin to like tune more into that. Again, it's just like any other muscle. If you've never even considered that past lives exist, don't feel like, oh my God, now I need to like think of like all 12 of my past lives like right now. And there aren't necessarily 12. You could have had hundreds, but it takes time and it takes release and it takes surrender. So you cannot force knowing. It will come when you are ready. So I can't wait to hear what your guys' experience has been. Please share on the Facebook group, Mind Body Balancer. I'm available on Instagram at EatFeelFresh. My website's eatfeelfresh.com. I can't wait to hear from you guys. We'll definitely have a juicy discussion going on in the Mind Body Balancer Facebook group. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to share with you guys on the next episode. Namaste. Thank you.